With the impact of COVID-19 is significant. All of us have been affected by it. So the important thing then for us is to focus on how we work together, the relationships that we have fostered over the years. How do we pool our resources together to ensure that we focus on recovery? And I think that's been the focus this year. To a large extent, a lot of time has been spent on looking at initiatives to push for post-COVID recovery. That's more important, the focus around that. Whether it was at the senior officials meeting or the ministers for trade meetings, all these, the goal is very clear. How do we keep facilitating trade, ensuring that the trade and investment flows, supply chains stay open and resilient? How do we work together to share best practices of how we're dealing with the challenges of this pandemic? So the ministers have clarified that here are the areas we would like you to focus on. Facilitating trade, continuing engaging the business community, ensuring that whatever we do facilitates the businesses, especially the small and medium enterprises, the micro, small and medium enterprises. How do we ensure that we deal with structural reform in the light of these of the pandemic itself? So looking at trade flows, facilitating trade flows, looking at how we deal with behind the border and at the border measures. This has been in the APEC agenda for a long time. What happens now is a more intense focus on how we use all the experience that we've had over the years to ensure that we keep facilitating the flow of essential goods and services. And to that end, the declaration on facilitating the movement of essential goods that the ministers just announced is an important step for APEC. It brings together all the initiatives that we've done and show and lead to a focus, a good and clear focus on how all this work that we've done on structural reform behind the border, at the border measures, dealing with non-tariff measures, facilitate the flow of essential goods, keep the markets open, keep the goods flowing smoothly, our supply chains resilient. Our APEC priorities have always been around keeping markets open for trade and investment. That will stay. What has happened in the light of the pandemic was that we've had to refocus our initiatives to ensure that we look again at our supply chains to see how we can, through our regional economic integration and regional cooperation efforts, work to strengthen supply chains. We also are focusing a lot more on collaboration among ourselves and with the business community. Also looking at the impact of COVID on the vulnerable groups has now make us look again at our focus on small and medium enterprises, look again at empowerment for women, look again at indigenous communities and how we can then work together to support these vulnerable groups and ensure that we manage the impact of COVID-19, and in so doing, enable all of us to work towards recovery and also look at how we can band together to build resilience going forward. So as the ministers, when they met recently, they talked about not just looking at all the initiatives around collaboration, building resistance of our supply chains, ensuring resilience of our supply chains, but they also went back to basics in the work that we've been doing in the WTO, because at the end of the day, that is very important, because a multilateral, our rules-based system will ensure that there is this transparency and predictability, and all that's important as we look to future-proof our systems. Work on e-commerce and the digital economy began years ago in APEC. It's not something that we just started. And when we did all that work, we were focusing on the future. But very interestingly, it is now more important to look at the benefits and the impact on the present, and how all the work that we have done in the past have now come home to roost, as it were, and we now have the opportunity to realize how important all the work that we've been doing, the fruits of all that work that we've been doing. So now it's really more concentrating, consolidating the work we've done on the digital economy, the various initiatives on e-commerce. We've got to take it further. Now we see how important it is for us to really band together and get this going. It's not about talking and it's not about rhetoric anymore, but really about looking at our infrastructure, looking at our regulations more intensely and rigorously to ensure that we benefit, all of us benefit through the use of digital technologies. We've seen this come home in such a strong way during this pandemic, when we were shut down and we were working from home, when students having to attend classes from home. It just drove home the importance of us making sure that all of us have the competencies, the technology, the infrastructure to deal with this new way of working and this new way of interacting with each other. So all the talk about the digital divide is real now, and therefore if we're going to talk of inclusive growth, we cannot talk about it as separate from the digital addressing issues of the digital divide, for example. That's one aspect. Then looking at regulations, we really need to look at interoperability of systems. All the things that we've talked about in the past, not just interoperability of systems, but also security, so issues of cybersecurity, issues of privacy. APEC introduced the cross-border privacy rules. Now we need to make sure we all sign on to that. That's an initiative that's really, really becoming more important today. And to date, only 9 economies have signed on. So we need to make sure that more of us, if not all of us, sign on to these important initiatives. Key part of the work that we are doing in APEC is making sure that the benefits accrue to not just the big business, but also MSMEs and other aspects of other parts of society, other sectors in society. And a key group are the women entrepreneurs. And last year, we put in place the La Serena roadmap for women in the economy. And that was an important achievement. It brought focus onto the work that we needed to do as a group on really looking at how we can ensure that the initiatives that we've put in place benefit the women entrepreneurs, ensure that they get an equal share of the economic pie, as it were. So the next steps for us now would be to make sure that that roadmap gets implemented. It's all well and good to have a roadmap, but it's more important for us to ensure that it gets implemented. And so this year, Malaysia, together with New Zealand and other economies, will be looking to plan out the implementation of this roadmap. So that's a very important aspect. And then, even as we're talking of the La Serena roadmap and inclusive growth and engaging with women, the COVID-19 pandemic brought a different light onto this work that we're doing. It really showed us how developments like this have a disproportionate impact on women. The roles of women just get expanded, and therefore the need for us to really work together to make sure that in our plans, in the work as we're moving towards the future and ensuring that women benefit from all the initiatives that we've put in place, that we make sure that the women are also given the necessary competencies to deal with these challenges. So building their competencies, sharing best practices, looking at our policies, and to see that the policies are supportive of the role of women in society. And one very important aspect that we need to also ensure is that we track the measures. It's not just about putting in place initiatives, but we also need to track the implementation to ensure that these initiatives that we put in place result in the outcomes that we thought about. So we have also come up with indicators, and that's important. Measuring outcomes is equally important. So APEC has developed a dashboard with 95 indicators. So when we track this, then we know how far we've come, how much more we need to do in ensuring that we provide the kind of support, the capacity building for women in society in the region. The value of APEC is that it is a voluntary, non-binding platform or forum. It provides an opportunity for member economies to have conversations, to have dialogues on difficult and challenging issues. So given all that, the fact that we are non-binding really provides that opportunity for more heart-to-heart discussions, for us to have candid discussions on issues that matter to all parties. And at the end of the day, it's the collaborative spirit with which we enter into our conversations to ensure that our eye is on the final goal. What is the goal that we're all looking at? We're looking at improvements in the region. We're looking at regional economic integration. We're looking at structural reform so that all of us benefit from the various initiatives. So those take priority, and that's the discussion that happens in APEC, in the APEC fora. Not so much the tensions front and center. Of course, tensions do have an impact on our work, but at the end of the day, it is the fact that we provide an avenue for conversations, and that's important.